Do you know anything about Gandhi?
Yeah.
And what's your impression of him?
You know, he's not my favorite person.
He's not?
You know,
And why not?
no. You know, he got popular. He got popular standing up to the British when they were controlling India, and he was trying to do it from a standpoint of nonviolent resistance.
Yes, that's what I love about him.
You know, and I think there's a big, going back to storytelling, there's a lot of, you know, really pushing people to do nonviolent resistance when you were facing violence. You know, Gandhi also has a history of viewing Black people in a low light. In some of his writings, especially speaking about liberation of Black people in South Africa, he uses very derogatory statements. He was a highly educated individual that went to Oxford University and then kind of branded himself as the simple individual. And he did a lot of questionable activities outside of his political stuff.
But he had a major impact upon the world with the idea of peace over hate, non-violent resistance.
Yeah, and my personal belief is those in power like pushing that. My personal belief is that
Martin Luther King went and learned from him. That's how he started the so-called civil rights movement, a non-violent resistance.
And as you said, you know, you said you're not a fan of that civil rights movement. As I said, I grew up under, you know, the Malcolm X's of the world. I didn't grow up under the MLKs.
Malcolm X's, you say?
Malcolm X, and then even in India, it's Bhagat Singh.
But Malcolm X overcame his anger, and he believed that all people should be together and not blaming white people anymore. When
I'm not talking about blaming
he had been brainwashed by the
we're
Muslims.
talking specifically about Gandhi and this specific idea of nonviolent resistance. And at the same time, you know, if somebody comes into your home right now and puts your family in danger, you're not going to rely on nonviolence to protect your family.
Protecting yourself. You have the right to do that.
It's the same. Well, so if an oppressive government comes to take over your country, which the British did to India, or which you know many Europeans did to Africa, you know, the question is, should they be nonviolent?
Yes.
Well, so then there's an
because nonviolence works better than violence.
Would nonviolence work if somebody stormed
Only
into your
people
house?
on the ego trip think that violence works. People who have anger think that anger is good. They don't realize that anger is evil, and you're not winning when you operate that way. You're losing in life when you have anger.
I understand if we view violence as the only option. And I'm not saying violence is the only option. I'm saying violence as a reaction to violence. As I said, if somebody broke into your home, you know, violence may have to be the evidence.
Protection. You have the right to defend yourself.
It's the same thing about protecting your country.
No.
No? There's a
But
difference between your home and your country.
But you live in Canada. What was your impression of the truckers there in Canada fighting for peace over there in a nonviolent way? What was your impression of them?
So my overall impression is I always want to stand with people who get together for whatever they believe in. When enough people care about something and they get together and they believe in something, I always encourage them to do whatever they think they need to do. I think the specific trucker situation was unique because the challenge now is, and we see it on every side of every debate, of every protest, is the moment a group of people get together and do something, whatever politicians are not in power usually support them, you know? So when Trump was in power and then we had the George Floyd situation and then, you know, Black Lives Matter hit the streets, then
what
all
a mess,
all the politicians that were against Trump would support the Black Lives Matter movement. Yeah. And it was the same thing when it came to the truckers. So whoever wasn't in power in Canada, and then also even conservatives in America, they would support these truckers.
Yeah.
You know, just there's an irony of it, which is, you know, 90% of truckers in Canada were already vaccinated and didn't have an issue with this. And also the prime minister of the country just won the election in September, and he did better than he did previous 2 years ago. So sometimes when people say they represent the people, the question is, if you represent the people, you know, this dude wouldn't be in power in the first place. And also when we have other civil rights issues or issues on social justice and people and issues, a lot of these individuals aren't there. And then unfortunately, the one trucker, the leader, that one of the head guys, and he had to get kicked out of the group because they found him specifically speaking about my people because we have a lot of truckers in Canada, and he was using a lot of racist sentiments and saying how how my people have come to steal their jobs. And then once that news came out, the truckers convoy had to kick him out. So I feel like the challenge now is when any group of people, it doesn't matter what you believe in, when you guys get together and fight for something, I think it's always the most beautiful thing in humanity. The challenge is now there's always a politician or always a billionaire or always somebody who cares about profit and power.
Yep.
And what they start to do is empower these groups of people and almost treat them like puppets. And I feel like no matter what the debate is, I always feel like when people take sides on an issue that hard, they're not realizing that it's actually divide and conquer.
Yeah.
I think the only immunity to this is unity. All people need to be together, and we need to stop cheering for our favorite politician or stop cheering for our favorite billionaire and realize that we're all in this together. It's completely possible for a government to only care about its economy and not its people, and a pharmaceutical company to only care about its profits and not the people, and a politician to pretend he cares about freedom, but he just cares about getting power. It's possible for all the leaders on each side of the debate to be in it for themselves, and they're just using the people.
Yeah, there's no love.
And I think that's an important thing where it doesn't matter, where you're from. Everybody has anxiety about tomorrow. Everybody has regrets about yesterday. Everybody wants their family to be in a good place. It don't matter who you voted for. It don't matter what your political
Let me
beliefs
ask you
are.
this. So were you surprised when in America they allowed that radical evil group, Black Lives Matter, a bunch of fat black radical lesbians, to tear down the statues of great men who founded and created the greatest country on this side of heaven, America, and replace it with an unemployed drug addict with a criminal record, and they're calling him a hero? Were you surprised when that happened?
I think, as I said, what surprises me is when one group of people looks at another group of people and sees them as something different than themselves.
But were you surprised when that happened?
As I said, what makes me surprised is that people don't stand together in these situations.
No, but the question is, were you surprised when America, a Christian country, allowed a bunch of radical lesbians tear down great statues and monuments of great men who founded and created the greatest country and replace it with an unemployed drug addict with a criminal record? Were you stunned by that?
I'm never surprised when people stand up for what they believe in. And and I think a really good example too is when the truckers convoy, they went ahead on there's a statue in Ottawa, the capital of Canada, called the Fallen Soldier. And what they went ahead and did is they went on and desecrated that statue. So I think what happens very often is, as I said, there's storytelling.
But why weren't you surprised that America allowed that to happen in America with those radical blacks?
America is a collection of states. America is not a person. America doesn't get to allow or not allow anything.
We could have stopped them with the army, with the police, all kind of ways to stop them.
I mean, and that could be said for January 6th. That could be said for the Kyle Rittenhouse.
There's no comparison in that. And what the insurrection that blacks committed upon this country.